Someone asked me recently, am I concerned when it comes to Hedera? Now, the reason why they asked me that is because recently something called COFRA, which is spelled COFRA, it was announced that they were going to be leaving the Hedera Council, which some people got kind of concerned with, despite the almost 14% recovery when it comes to HBAR in the past 24 hours. Again, despite that, some people are still concerned about this. But in today's video, I'll talk about what I think about this, even though nothing I say is financial advice and even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. However, what really inspired me to make this video is someone called Vetico, and he gave me a super thanks. Thank you so much. So shout out to Vetico. He basically asked me for a Hedera update, so I'll be making one in today's video. And I just want to say again, thank you so much to Vetico. I greatly appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and I hope you have a very nice day. Thank you so much for the constant support. I, again, greatly appreciate it. Now, here's the thing. Is COFRA leaving Hedera such a bad thing? Not necessarily, because in my opinion, we've seen multiple entities before leave the Hedera Council. For instance, we take a look at Boeing, which is an aviation company. That was kind of a sting. Some people like to say kind of, wow, it was kind of a shame they said that they left. But in hindsight, Hedera still continued, so I don't think it's such a big deal. And also, furthermore, we've seen something like in the case of DBS Bank leave Hedera before in terms of the governing council. So it's not such a big deal. And again, I'm talking about DBS Bank from Singapore. So when I take a look at this right here again, COFRA leaving, it's not necessarily such a big deal in my opinion. And now some people may be wondering, okay, what is COFRA? Now, COFRA is based in Switzerland. I've been to Switzerland twice, by the way, but I'm just saying. One of the things that COFRA is known for is that one of the brands that's under it is called CNA. And if someone's been to Europe, I think they might know what that is, right? Especially if they go to Belgium, maybe, they might see CNA, or maybe Netherlands, even though I saw online that some of the stores closed in Europe. But yeah, besides that point, that is kind of a famous thing that is under COFRA. So again, this is not something so concerning to me in terms of COFRA leaving Hedera, at least in terms of its council, because again, people don't consider what's still there, right? They only focus on the ones that's leaving, but they don't focus on the ones that are actually there. Like, for instance, did you know that Google is still in Hedera's council, right? We take a look at McLaren. McLaren recently joined Hedera's council, so we just gotta let that sink in. McLaren is really massive. Not to mention, we see something like Mondelez. Did you know that Mondelez is still in the Hedera council? And what are two famous brands under Mondelez? We take a look at, first of all, Oreo, which of course everyone pretty much knows. And then also we take a look at Cliff, like, the Cliff Bar. So at the end of the day, when it comes to Hedera, people only focus on what's leaving the council. They don't focus what's actually still there. That's the thing. So when people like to tell me, oh, is this concerning? Well, not really for me. And clearly, even despite this announcement, HBAR recovered almost 14% in the past 24 hours. So again, it's not like this is such a big concern. A lot of people probably didn't even know that COFRA was even in the Hedera Council to begin with. So when they were announced to be leaving leaving the council, it wasn't really such a big deal. But still, some of the more dedicated fans, they kind of asked me about that. So of course, I naturally wanted to make a response video to that question instead of just individually kind of replying to everyone. It's going to take a lot of time. So instead, I just made this video. And with HBAR as of right now being at around 10 cents, I mean, sure, it's still down by quite a lot when compared to last year. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, I'm not going to complain if there is a recovery when it comes to HBAR, because if we think about HBAR, even at around 10 cents, it's historically considered a little bit bearish in my opinion, because if we just kind of rewind the clock a little bit, if we take a look at 10 cents, did you know that HBAR was at around 10 cents back in February of 2021? So this is not considered such a good time for HBAR anyways. Now granted, is HBAR at an all-time low? No, it isn't, but 10 cents is still not considered the best. So imagine, right? We've seen an almost 14% recovery in the past 24 hours, and we're only at around 10 cents. That kind of showcases just how low HBAR has been for quite a while now. That's the thing. Keep in mind, even being at around 10 cents, HBAR is still around 3.5 times almost, again, lower than where it once was in December 2024. Now, people like to say, okay, that's not like too bad of a pullback. Like a lot of other projects out there went down like 99% or whatever when compared to 2024 or 2025. I'm aware of that. And with that being said, people like to say, oh, if HBAR just recovers to around 35 cents, 34 cents, they consider that it's going to be so boring. But I don't share that mindset, because if, let's say, Bitcoin went back to its all-time high, which, it's not even 3 times, not even 2 times lower than that, it would be considered like such a massive milestone. Like, a lot of people would probably celebrate at the idea of maybe Bitcoin going back to its all-time high, even though it's not 2 times lower than that currently. So if suddenly HBAR goes back to not its all-time high, if it just maybe went back to around 35 cents, in which we saw back in December 2024, if it just went back to that, which we're again around 3.5 times lower than that, that's suddenly considered bad. That's considered boring. But suddenly Bitcoin goes back to its all-time high, it's not considered boring. How does that make sense? It doesn't make sense to me, because to me, again, if something doesn't even hypothetically do like a 300% movement, I just kind of find it a little bit boring in some cases. But that's just personally my mindset. And I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf, but I'm just saying, when it comes to HBAR overall, it is evidently around 3.5 times lower, still, even as of right now, when compared to back in December of 2024. And I also like to ask myself this question: was December of 2024 even an altcoin season? According to many people, no, it wasn't. I mean, of course, altcoins did very good at that time, but it wasn't like an altcoin season. It wasn't like reminiscent of 2021 type of vibes, if that makes sense. At that moment in time, it was more so, I guess, the situation where altcoins were doing pretty okay, but it was nowhere close to an altcoin season, in my opinion. So again, HBAR just going back to not even an altcoin season level, just going back to around 34 cents, or around 3.5 times lower than that. So that's sometimes what I'm thinking about. That's the thing. And I don't find it boring, by the way, but this is just my mindset. Now, personally, as of right now, if I take a look at Hedera, I still think it's pretty cool, because people like to say, okay, when it comes to the Hedera hash graph, since it uses a directed acyclic graph and how it actually doesn't utilize traditional blockchain technology, some people like to say, but that gimmick, they say, that kind of unique selling point, they say that it's getting outdated. But I like to beg to differ, actually, because if I take a look at the case of a directed acyclic graph, it's not like there's so many of these archetypes that kind of appeared ever since 2021, in a sense where it's just, we don't see too many alternatives beyond traditional blockchain technology when it comes to this space that are actually very popular. That's the thing. And Hedera, consistently for many years now, it's been kind of like the go-to alternative beyond traditional blockchain technology, at least for quite a while as of right now. So I don't think that gimmick, so to speak, right, that unique point that it has, that unique advantage, I don't think it's outdated. Now, had there been like 20 or 30 different Hedera archetypes that appeared in the past couple of years, then maybe Hedera is a little bit cooked at that point, because it's too much competition. But I just don't see it as of right now, so I don't think it's cooked. That's the thing. It's like, for instance, if, let's say, I take a look at this G-Shock, right? This is the G-Shock GW5000HS that I got in Japan, by the way. But besides that, if I take a look at this, if, let's say, 30 different competitors when it comes to G-Shock appeared, maybe it might be a little bit cooked, who knows? But it just hasn't seen that. You know what I mean? Like, what is really a competitor when it comes to G-Shock anyways? Timex? I just don't really think about it that way. I mean, I have a Timex Ironman, but it's just different. When it comes to the G-Shock, it's solar powered, it has multi-band 6, so, it can connect with the, I guess, atomic clock or whatever and change the time like that. It's just in a different league, in my opinion. I like the Timex, though. I use it all throughout, back then when I was attending in college. But still, the G-Shock, it's just different. It's like Hedera hash graph. It's just different. You know what I mean? And I think that when it comes to G-Shock, it doesn't have too many archetypes that are really kind of, competing with it head to head, in my opinion, at least. And when it comes to Hedera, I just don't see it either. I just don't really see 20 or 30 different archetypes that are competing with this. So Hedera kind of has that stronghold when it comes to the space in regard to an alternative beyond traditional blockchain technology. In which case, if the market were to take off for whatever reason, Hedera is waiting right there. It doesn't have to chase later on, it's waiting right there. So if the narrative when it comes to alternatives beyond blockchain technology were to kind of, for whatever reason, become a really big thing, Hedera, it's kind of waiting right there, actually. So I'm not concerned when it comes to this. I'm still waiting, I'm still holding, but I am not telling anyone to do anything. And I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward. And again, as HBAR continues to do its thing, who knows what will happen moving forward, but all I can do is stay patient. But nonetheless, if there's any news, any updates, I'll be sure to make a video on it. So again, I want to say thank you for watching. And again, shout out to Vitico for giving me a super thanks. I greatly appreciate it. And I hope everyone has a very nice day. And hopefully I'll see you on the next one. It's Winnie the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.